Hi and welcome to StockInvest.us podcast for week 4, or the week of shame. And why is it the week of shame? Well, last week I told you I thought it would be a slow week, but Nasdaq ending down more than 7% made it the worst week in over a year. I have to admit I actually told you that could be the case. I will get back to that. And for the rest of the stuff, the analysis of Microsoft and Apple, Bitcoin and Dogecoin, they were all wrong. The only thing that was somewhat correct was Tesla, which ended under $950. So what's up for this week? Will there be some redemption? I don't know. First, we have to do the disclaimer, and then we will do the market analysis.
Welcome to StockInvest.us podcast. We remind you that trading involves a high risk of losing money, and that you should speak with a financial advisor before buying or selling any securities. You should not base your investment decision upon StockInvest.us. By using the information provided, you agree and are held liable for your own investment decisions.
Last week became an awful week for the markets, where Nasdaq fell 7.55% and is now traded below 14,000 points at 13,769 points. Dow Jones also had a very bad week, ending at 34,265 points, or down 4.59%. Despite telling you last week that I thought it would be a slow week, I actually was not surprised by the huge fall. And if we go back to last week's podcast, I explained why this might happen. US been holding a little bit back. Nasdaq, for instance, has 18% buy signals, but up from last week. New York Stock Exchange very low at 17, and these numbers being low, meaning that we are getting into the oversold territory, could go two ways, because when things are oversold, it can go very fast downwards. You can get a very scary situation where things really drop, and that is why I focus a little bit on these fundamental things, because there is something that, being a catalyzer, pushes markets can drop very fast, very hard, 3, 4, 5%. In these cases, when market already is scared, things can go very fast down. But it's a new week and we can only learn from last week. So what are the numbers this week? What is it to look out for? Well, it will be a week full of different numbers. Today, there will be production manufacturing numbers coming out. Tuesday will be earnings numbers for General Electric and Microsoft. Wednesday, the Fed monetary policy updates will come. That will be an exciting day. But everyone believes that they will just confirm the interest rate hikes and the more hawkish attitude. On Wednesday as well, there will be earning results for Boeing and Tesla. You should pay attention. Thursday, there will be jobless claims, and that was the one thing that came in last week above expectations, causing that huge fall on Friday. And on Friday, there will be personal spending and income numbers. And before moving into the analysis, the technical analysis for the market, we will just recap on Netflix, because it is earning seasons. It's quarter numbers coming in. And last week I told you that we have this one service at StockInvest.us where you can look how the stocks move before and after the earnings release. And last week I told you correctly that if you check Netflix, it always fall on the day of release. Been doing that the last 3 quarters, and with the last week numbers was actually the 4th quarter where the same thing happened, that it falls on the release date just to go up the following days afterwards. And that was exactly what I wanted to say, that you should buy on the end of the release day. I said to buy on the end of the day before the release. So that was a huge mistake of me saying that. And I think that will be the case. Netflix had an awful day, falling all the way down to $390. And I think that we will see pickups during this week. In the trading session, I will tell you how I traded Netflix, because I did my own mistakes, but we will get back to that. And as you just heard last week, I told you about these signals, and with these low signals, there could be that huge fall in the market. And usually, if you're a new listener, I do like this. I go through some fundamental stuff, then look at the signals and go to the chart to verify all the stuff. And I usually tend to say something about the bigger pictures, because we need to keep attention to these things. And the bigger pictures are, of course, the interest rates, the inflation, which I've been mentioning now for, I think it must be a year already, that this would plague the markets. And a little bit surprising, but last week the 10-year Treasury fell a little bit, not much. It fell by 1% down to 1.75. It was at some point up at 1.82. But you should keep an eye on the Treasury yield, because as long as it goes up, you can expect the markets to go down. The other thing that we follow is, of course, gold, and gold made another $18 last week, ending at 1,840. And you often see that when markets go down, money go into different other instruments where they believe they are a bit more secure. Oil stable at $85. The Ukraine conflict is getting sharper and sharper. The last news was that United States might send troops, at least to the Baltic countries, and this could increase the tension. And we know that United States called home diplomatic families in the expectation that Russia will actually invade Ukraine, maybe already the week ahead of us. If this happens, you should expect that it will affect the markets hugely. At the same time, even China demonstrated their military power flying over Taiwan. That's another conflict which I told you to keep an eye on, because these major things will affect the long-term development in the markets. And getting back to the one thing that I wanted to say last week, I told you about these signals being very, very low, these buy signals. StockInvest, we analyze more than 35,000 tickers. Actually, we added a lot of new indexes last week, markets to our system last week. So if you are a Norwegian, we now also have Oslo Stock Exchange listed in our system, and you will find all the tickers and our analysis there, along with several other countries. And last week, the signal numbers were very low. And as I said, that usually can lead to two things. You can get that super panic where things fall very, very fast, or it is a pickup / buying opportunity. We had the same thing back into 2020, and for sure also in 2021 we had a few occasions where the buy signals were very low, and everything picked up. And right now, across all these tickers that we analyzed, there is only 16% buy signals. It's some of the lowest I ever seen. And looking at Nasdaq with only 6% is for sure the lowest I have seen since the beginning of the pandemic. And then I can only repeat what I said last week, is this can either be a fantastic pickup opportunity, or it could lead to even more disaster where things fall even more rapidly. We know that the 14,000 limit on Nasdaq is broken. That support is broken down. It's now below 14,000. It can very well just drop straight to 12,000 points. I would not be surprised. At the same time, I would not be surprised if we see a rebound out of another world, bringing markets strongly up this week. It's that kind of situation where things can go both ways. And if you're a trader, it is the place where you either make shitload of money or you lose money. The investor that sits very tight are more or less used to this swing and is more into that long-term picture. And in the long-term picture, with all these low buy signals, we should have a reaction up anytime soon. It doesn't have to be this week, despite believing so. New York Stock Exchange, only 9% buy signals. A little bit better in London with 17% buy signals. If we go across over to Asia, we see that Tokyo only have 14% buy signals. But Tokyo was down at 13 in week 52, picked up a little bit after that. Shenzhen, China is falling and falling. Was very high, started the new year up at 49, is now down at 24. they struggle with debt, and there might be more coming from that part. So these are the fundamental things. Again, last week I said I couldn't see anything really big that could tick off the market. I thought this week will be more interesting, and it for sure will be. And if we look at the chart, you should do this yourself. Well, remember, and don't forget that. Remember that you can go and check out the earning reports. As I said, Tesla will come this week, Microsoft will come this week, and you can check out our earnings report. Go to StockInvest.us, type in the ticker Tesla Microsoft, and you will see a warning about forthcoming earning report, and you can see how they did before, during and after the release of the quarter results. It might help you if you're trading these stocks. But we have to check out the market chart, and the ticker is Exig. Or you can just write Nasdaq. And what do we see? I told you last week the markets was oversold, and this week it's even more oversold. I told you about what happens if the support is broken down. It will just fall much harder. And now it is very, very clear to me that the downward trend is established. It will be very, very hard, I would say almost a miracle, to bring Nasdaq back above 16,000. I mean, the perception, the view that we are now in a bear market that will last for quite some time. And again, if you have been listening to me during all these podcasts, we're getting close to 100 podcasts. I told you this would happen. I told you how I reduced my exposure from putting everything into the market when the COVID pandemic started, and how I've been reducing my exposure because I expected the top to come. You cannot always be dead on the top. But that's not the point either. Neither to be dead on the bottom as well. Because that's close to magic. You have to be more realistic and try to see the bigger picture and approximately where will be the top. Now I expect what I expected over last year, that things will go down, but it will just be a new buying opportunity. How long it will last is very hard to say. That huge resistance at 14,000 points, 14,400 points, 15,000 points, 16,000 points. All of these are now huge resistance. We have been surprised before, but in the long-term picture, there is now also a death cross from the long-term moving average, the short-term moving average, indicating that we should see a fall for some more time. At the same time, as I said, very, very shortly, we are talking this week, maybe a little bit more. Nasdaq is totally oversold on the relative strength index, down at 18. As I said, this is usually a pickup point, but the volume did not increase as much as it should last week to have that real sell-off, and that makes me believe that there is room for even more downturn, that we are not finished. How far down it could go? Well, normally you will go down towards 13,000, 12,800 might be where it picks up. If it starts pick up straight from the beginning of this week, it will face first resistance at 14,200, later 14,500. Of course, some around 14,000, but I don't think that will be the main obstacle. Having a negative trend, being very oversold means to me that it will be hard trading. It's typical trading situation where you just go in, you go out. It's very volatile. You use the red day to buy, you use the green day to sell. You don't sit long. If you're trading puts and calls, of course, this might be the place where you can make some huge money or lose huge money. For the week as such, we have to conclude every week. I try to do that just to give my opinion how things will go. Last week I said I thought it would be some slow movement sideways, probably end just above last week's, and it fell, as we said, very, very hard. So what about this week? I am in the kind of same expectations that it will pick up on the oversold. It will be a volatile week where things go up and down, and all these huge quarter numbers like Microsoft and Tesla will release, and Apple will release, can push the market in both directions. Last week, Netflix came with their numbers, as we know, and it was the subscriber numbers, not the income by itself, but the subscriber numbers and the future expectations that caused that huge fall in Netflix. For a week as such, my best guess is that we can see further fall, but that during the week there will be some sort of pickup, and I will, for second week in a row, expect that it will be a slow but green week. So I'll stick to that small pickup, but again, the overall picture is negative. Was not the best analysis I ever given, but look at the chart itself. There is no support below, because when Nasdaq was moving up, it was moving so fast. That is just these major psychological numbers, round numbers, 13,500, 13,000, etc. That are these classic pickups. You often hear me say like 14,800 or 12,800 is because when things fall to a level, it usually breaks it a little bit before bouncing up. That's why you have this very low or this very high. Best guess for the week as such is that we will get back above 14,000 points. For all of you, I really hope that will be the case. At the same time, I have to warn you, like I did last week, it can fall much more, much faster. That is the way the stock markets. And that brings us to the part where we'll check a few analyses. I will give you my this week's buying tips. Last week, of course, was not the best week. We lost that huge winning streak with a loss in Netflix, but we will get back to that. Just starting with the analysis. The huge falls last week made, of course, all the companies that we follow to fall more than expected. The closest to the actual price target was Tesla. I said last week I believe Tesla would fall to 950. Ending the week at 943.90 was the closest of all of them. Starting with Apple, and Apple, I said I believe Apple would end the week at 175, ending at 162.41. And if we check out the Apple ticker, we can tell the following about the chart. You should do this yourself. It's a very good exercise to look at chart and try to understand them. Right now, Apple is oversold. It is at the support at 160 level. Has some resistance at 165, later at 170, 175. Has a death cross from the moving averages, where the short-term moving average is below the long-term average. In addition, it even have a death star. At StockInvest.us, we have gold stars, but we also have death stars, where you can expect huge falls. This time they both came at the same place. That's very, very seldom, and signals the same thing to me, that we are in a bearish market overall. But as I said, Apple is oversold on the relative strength index. It has support at 160. If this is broken down, it should fall very, very fast down to 150. Only minor support below these levels. At 150, there start to become some substance, and should be a nice pickup level for, I would say, maybe for even a few weeks, if that happens. But what about the week ahead of us? Where will things go? Being oversold usually is a buying opportunity. It's a very long time since we saw Apple being oversold on the relative strength index. It's been low, but only at 45, 47, and every time picked up, doing very, very well. Last time it was down at 47, it was around 140, went all the way straight up to 180. Now it is 27 on the 14-day relative strength index, and as I said, it can fall even further. And I think actually that is what will happen. Apple will push a little bit up, face all that resistance, and then continue downwards. How far will it go? Well, I don't think it will fall all the way to 150 during this week, but hover somewhere around 155 low, pushing upwards to the 160 level, ending the week somewhere, in my opinion, around 160. On the upside, if things go better, that we see market starts to push up, could even be that Apple has very good earning results. It could push back to the 170 levels. And let's just quickly look at the earnings report, like I just mentioned a little bit earlier. At StockInvest.us, you can go in, click, you will see a warning next to the chart saying earnings report, 2 days left until Apple earnings report. You can click the report, and you can see how Apple done before. And like Netflix, on the day of release, Apple usually been falling. It did that in Q3 21. And even for the day after the release, then it started to pick up. And the same thing may just happen this time. For the week as such, I believe that we will see Microsoft end the week, I would say 158. That will be the final evaluation. So further down for Apple, with a huge possibility that it might just bounce up to the 170 level, but that will only be for a short time, in my opinion, if that happens. Straight to Microsoft. Also, Microsoft will release numbers this week. And you can check out for yourself. Microsoft has done the opposite thing of Netflix. It's usually been rising on the day of quarter releases. And it will be exciting to see what happens. The chart is telling somewhat the same like in Apple. We have very oversold, is down at 17, even more oversold than Apple. And if we compare these two, Microsoft and Apple, my bet is that there is a bigger chance that Microsoft will do a short rebound this week than Apple. So if you are in the puts and the calls, well, that might be just the case, that Microsoft be a better bet than Apple. At the same time, we know it can fall even more. Microsoft doesn't have very good support below. And that is, of course, a situation that we don't want. It can easily fall down to the next support level, which is around 200, 285. At the same time, it faces some resistance at 300, 305, 310, 315, but the major resistance is up at 325. And looking at the chart, seeing that the volume rose very heavily on Friday, that's what you want. You want volume to go. If the stock is falling, going into oversold, you want that, what we call a sell-off, a situation where the last people just give in to secure the profits, because that makes ground for more positive optimism, pushing stocks upward. So for Microsoft, I will be positive. I think that Microsoft might just do very well this week. I would not be surprised if we see it pushes all the way up to 315, could be as high as 320, ending the week somewhere, in my opinion, around 310. But again, this is also just temporary. Because overall, like Apple, we are seeing sell signals, we are seeing trend shifts, and everything indicates that the long term, the medium to long term, is starting to be very bearish also for Microsoft. And then there is Tesla. And this is, of course, one stock that is hard to predict. It follows, but right now it's following exactly that pattern, which I said. It has broken that head and shoulder. I don't remember if it was last podcast or the podcast before I told you there is a head and shoulder formation in Tesla. It's one of these very unique things in technical analysis that you can learn about. It's called formations. You have patterns and formations. You have rectangle formations, you have double bottom, double top formations, and in this case we had a head and shoulder formation. A little bit hard to explain over a podcast what it looks like, but you have shoulders on both sides and you have a head, and that head was at $1,200. Shoulders around 1,100, and the neckline is just below the shoulders, and you measure the distance from the neckline to the top, and the stock should fall the same distance down. In this case, the neckline was around $1,030. So we know, based on this technical analysis, that it should fall $170 from 1,030. That will make it what? It will make it 850, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And everything indicates that that will happen. It's actually the bottom of the trend, and should be that place where things might pick up. And if you are one of the thousands that follows me, it's exactly where I again will go in. If you remember last time, I went in at 850.60, went all the way up to 1,200, got out because I expected actually this fall to happen. So Tesla is not oversold, is 41 on the relative strength index, has very little support below, of course some around 930, then you have the 900 level, but there is no real big support before we get down to, I would say, around 850.60. It was the levels before the last big upturn. And sorry, I said I went in at 860, I went in at $560 last time. And as we get down to this level, I will again consider to get in. Actually, I will consider to get in around 800, I would say, might be just a very good buying opportunity. So for Tesla, everything indicates that Tesla still can fall. I would not be surprised if we see Tesla down to 850 during the week. Could also push upwards, but will face lots and lots of resistance around 1,000, making it very hard to go further up. If it breaks up, it can of course just move back to 1,100, 1,200, but I don't see that very realistic. Volume increased a little bit last day, but not enough to call it a sell-off, and that makes me believe that we will, as I said, see Tesla fall even further before pushing up. It might be that it starts the week a little slow, then go up, or the opposite case where it starts a little up and then continue down. In both cases, I see Tesla somewhere around 880 by the end of the week. So we will lower the target to 880. Last time we had this target was back in week 51, where we were exactly at 880. I think it turned around 890 if I'm not totally mistaken. It was turning around, yeah, it had a very, very low day at $899. So 880 for the week will be the end, in my opinion. And then there is crypto, and crypto have taken me by a surprise because it just continued downwards. It's a very, very strong downwards trend, and it's super hard to beat this. And every time we break a level down, I told you if it falls below 40,000, it should easily fall to 35,000. That's exactly what happened last week. 40,000 didn't hold, and it even fell to 35, and makes it so hard to continue upwards, because now 40,000 will be that huge resistance, then 45, then 50, then 55, 60, 65. So it will be a long journey upwards, but there is really no resistance upward to 40,000. So there should be a rebound. It's even oversold on the relative strength index. There should be a rebound back to 40,000, but that will be such a huge resistance that I don't see that happen. But my guess for the week is that Bitcoin will get back to somewhere close to 40,000, and we will just take it from there. Like we've seen in Apple, like we've seen in Microsoft, and even in Tesla, we see clear trend changes, and that makes it very hard. And Dogecoin, my bet in Dogecoin at 20 cent. That was on the big roll before. Then I got back in at sold at 30 and 40, if you remember. Got back in at 20. Thought that would be a good buy. Well, that's just been disaster. It's now at 14 cent, but it's also what we call a shitcoin. It's just for fun, just for gamble. And everything looks like in Bitcoin is just an endless downturn, and Dogecoin doesn't have that same kind of resistance levels like Bitcoin. They are just minor, but they are at 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, etc. So every time it gets up to this level, you can expect some sort of retraction back. If it goes to 16, you can expect it to move down to 14, then move back to 16. You need to see the tops increasing, and right now they're not increasing, they're just decreasing, getting lower and lower. And it will be very hard, in my opinion, to even get back to 20. Then we have to see a total turnover in the markets. Personally, I'm in Dogecoin for fun, so I can sit a little longer, but I don't see any return on that investment anytime soon. But for the week, I will do the same as Bitcoin. I think we will have a reaction up, and I think that we will see Dogecoin somewhere around 18 cents by the end of the week. And that brings us to the very, very last part of this podcast, the trading tips. Since starting to share my trading tips, I've done 30 trades. 17 have been profitable, 10 have been cut by stop loss, and 3 trades are still open. And last week I did 2 mistakes. First off, I did a mistake of being wrong in the prediction for the week. I thought it would be a slow green week, where it ended totally red. And when it's a red week, it's very hard to make a good trade. It's usually a buying opportunity for next green day. I bought Sundal at 54 cents, was cut by stop loss shortly after at 51 cents, making a loss of 5.56%. So I'm out of that trade. It might just blow back up. Who knows? I still consider it a possible good option. The other trade I went into last week is Netflix. And I did not check the charts properly myself. I made a mistake. It was, of course, has the tendency of falling on the day of the release. And Netflix did. It really soared. But I got in, I saw Monday markets were falling, and I thought it would be a good opportunity to get in at Netflix a little bit early. Got in at 5.11. We're sitting through the week. Netflix released the results. Stock just plunged immedately and fell below my stop loss. So the stop loss was not in effect. That happens if you have the trigger price above what the opening price is. Netflix opening low and just continued to fall. My stop loss was not triggered. So right now I'm in 22% loss in Netflix. But I believe it will catch up, but it will be very hard to make that trade. Anything better than trying to reduce the losses. If you are not in Netflix, it might just be a buying opportunity because, as I said, usually it falls on the day of the release. And then, according to previous patterns, move a little bit upwards. So I will not be surprised to see Netflix move upwards. So Netflix stays open, and I even consider it a reasonable good bet for the week ahead of us. We will just watch and see. Doyle stays open despite a very, very red week last week. Doyle made decent, I would say, ending the week at 13.12, is up 2.90 since we bought it in week 2. And as I told you, this is the kind of more secure stock. And it actually held up good. Consider it even to be a good trading opportunity if you are not in. I will stay in Dole and see if we can push even further up. For this week, there should be, in my opinion, plenty of trading opportunities, but you have to play your cards in a different way. Be more patient, have a huge list of candidates, just scroll through them, watch them during the day, and see if anyone get close to that very nice support level where you can do a pickup. But I found one candidate which I think might do very well, which I personally will try a trade in. We will see if I will be successful in this one. But Starbucks looks to me like it should have a rebound this week. It fell down to 95.72 on Thursday, then moved up. It's totally oversold on the relative strength and is down at 6. It's super low, same as Nasdaq. Some resistance, of course, at 98, then 100, 102, 104, 106, 108. Most of resistance up at 110. And I think that this might be a rebound candidate because it has that huge increase in volume when it fell to the bottom on Thursday. I consider that to be a sell-off. I think there is a fair chance that we can go 1/3 or 2/3 up from the major fall. Let's say the major fall was 110 to 96. That makes it That makes it $16. $14. So if 1/3 will be somewhere around 4.70, should bring it up to $100 for sure. That will be a nice 5%. If it goes 2/3, it should bring it up to around 104, where we can see previous resistance. So that's fair chance. I will not be surprised if you see Starbucks up to 104, giving a 10% yield on a very short-term reaction up. Doesn't change the fact that things are not as good as before. Will just, if it happens, be a natural reaction upwards. So Starbucks will be the trading tips of the week. I will see if I can get up to 100, make a fiver, or even as high as 104, maybe 106, even on very high. Then I will be out. It's up either 1/3 or 2/3. If it breaks 1/3 by some decent, it should go up to the 2/3. We will just see. And that was the trading tips for the week. Just a quick recap. Netflix was not sold, so I stay in Netflix. And I believe, based on previous behavior, that current level is just trading at $397. Could be an opportunity. Doesn't have to be, but I think it could be an opportunity. Dole stays open, and Starbucks will be that one trade that I will try to get in as low as possible today. I will see. Usually it's around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, somewhere around there. Depends how everything opens, but I will try to get a good price, enterprise, and hope to see maybe as much as a 10% upside in Starbucks over the week, but I will easily settle with 5%. And again, that will be the end of this podcast of shame, where we were so wrong last week. And giving you a final trading tips is, overall these podcasts, I try to teach you small stuff so you can make better decisions yourself. Never rely on the source entirely. Either it's me, your broker, or some other person that you follow. Try to learn as much as you can about behavior, about stock behavior, even your own behavior, your own trading pattern. Where do you do your own mistakes? What is the classic mistakes that you do? Get in too early or out too early, and continue to evolve. And maybe now, since I did a small recap about signals, maybe understand why these things are somewhat important and what happens when you are on very low, very high. Things can go very fast in both directions. It's a classic opportunity if you are a trader. If you are an investor, you do different things. You let the trend be your friend. And right now, most trends are broken downwards. Going from upwards, they went into a sideways movements. Now they have gone to downwards trends. And it is always hard to fight things that are in trends. And at StockInvest.us, we have lots and lots of different lists where you can see for yourself easily, much more easily. We will list them, we will rank them, and you can see if they are an upward trend, downward trend, if there is a buy signal, sell signals from the pivot bottom, stops, relative strength, and the grid stocks are oversold. Where can you possibly put your bet? And getting to the end of January, getting soon into February. I hope you are enjoying the winter. If you are winter where you are, right now in Vilnius is winter, and pay attention to that big things happening around the world. Hopefully everything will solve. We will get back to normal. And the last note will be that we are at the very end of COVID. It will disappear very quickly. So any COVID-related stocks might not be the best choice right now. Until next week, have just a beautiful week and hopefully bank in some greens. Bye.